All right, back on the Cadillac today. I'll kind of touch base with some stuff that I've already kind of done. I don't know. A lot of the stuff I don't feel like needs to be recorded, but I'll just kind of share it out there anyways. So anyways, I got half of the hood stripped. I still got to strip this half. And then on the bottom side, we're going to be sandblasting all these edges. Same thing with the fender. And a sandblast the jams. It's just so much easier than sitting there and trying to hand sand. You know, like this spot here, sitting there trying to hand sand where a grinder or something doesn't get. You don't really want to just take a die grinder and just start reaming in there either. And then while I'm at it, we're gonna just kind of get the loose, flaky rust off. My father-in-law is gonna deal with the engine bay, but I figure for some reason this side's really rusty. The battery must have gone there or something, but that side's really bad. This side not so much. So, and then we are gonna sandblast up and in here on both sides. Where are we at with the fender? I got the patch welded in the bottom. Went through, hammered and dollied a bunch of the dents on the fender. All this blue dye come. I'm gonna wipe the whole fender down with some lacquer thinner before I epoxy it. But for the most part, the fender's pretty much ready. There's a couple little small dings in it, but nothing that's gonna be nothing crazy. We got it. Well, that's kind of a bad angle. Well, it's kind of fit to the door. I adjusted the jams. I fought this rear door like crazy to get this door to fit, and it just would not fit. So I got it to fit as good as I could back here. And then up at the top of the door here, the tops of these would hit each other. So I ground about, I don't know, a 1/16 of an inch off here and about a 1/16 of an inch off of here, and just kind of worked back and forth little by little, and then just took my welder and welded up the edge. Did the same thing on this side, welded up the edge, because you grind that much, you end up going through the skin and then you get to the structure. So you got to weld that up. Back here, this gap had to be opened up. I tried making a cut along here, and I was planning on tapping this jam back, but there's just too much structure in there, so I had to weld that back up. And instead, I basically ground the whole length of this door edge to get it to fit right. And then I went back and had to weld it all up. And then back here, this quarter had a bunch of holes drilled in it from a previous injury, from a previous accident. They would just drill holes and use a puller to pull them out. Well, what I ended up doing was I welded those up, and then I took this piece of steel, took this piece of plate, it's probably like 1/16 of an inch thick. What gauge would that be? I don't know, it's probably like 16 gauge, a little 14 gauge. And then I just drilled 2 holes in it. I got a 5/16 hole here and a 5/16 hole here. And at first, I welded it on like this, and then that way I got more of a print. This edge, this bottom roll here was 3/4 of an inch caved in, and it was just all mud before. So now, after pulling on it, and then welded this on, pulled on it, and then for little spots, I have this tiny slide. I got this smaller slide hammer, and it had a screw in it, and the screw, you would drill the hole and then you would screw it in. Well, that's the old way of doing it, and we don't do it that way. So I put a 1/4 inch bolt in it, and then I'd just weld it on, beat it out, cut it off, weld it on, beat it out, cut it off, weld it on, beat it out, cut it off, so on and so forth. But we finally got this where it needs to be. You take a straight edge up to it now, I got a little bit to work with. That's like less than a 1/16 of an inch. But we're getting it little by little. Try to get it good enough where it doesn't need any fill, or as little filler as possible. So the plan today is I'm going to focus on this, get this all squared away, get it ground down, ready to go. And then I got a DA around the edges because I'm going to go back and epoxy over all of this. When I sandblast the front, like I said before, anywhere where you have any kind of discoloration by your welds or something, you gotta sand. I always sandblast it. I know a lot of guys, they just Duraglass this and call it a day. I know other guys that would go through and wire wheel everything and then Duraglass it, and then they'd body work over the Duraglass. But all that does is it rusts out. The metal will rust out, the Duraglass will hold its shape. So it'll look nice from the outside, but meanwhile it's rotting from the inside out. So we'll do that. We'll sandblast this, and then we'll sandblast the edges of the hood. And then when we're at that, it's supposed to be really nice out on Sunday, so I'm hoping I can get this all done on Sunday. While we're sandblasting, we gotta do, so here's the trunk. I gotta do this jam. That's gonna take, I might even just bring this to the sandblaster because I don't know if I really feel like doing all of this. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. If it comes off easy, then I'll do it. If it's being a pain, then I'll have the sandblaster do it. I also gotta do the fender skirts. One of them had a rust hole in the bottom. And then, yeah, then hopefully Sunday we'll be able to get this in epoxy, and then we'll really be able to start hammering out the bodywork on this, and it's gonna go pretty quick. The fender's gonna end up needing a skim coat. The front door I think is pretty good. This rear door, I can't really get back here because of the way the door structure is. I kind of messed with it a little bit. We're gonna block it out as good as we can, and then when I epoxy these edges and when I epoxy the hood and the fender and all that, then I'll do another coat of epoxy on this, and that might be enough to fill it all. Otherwise, everything, for the most part, actually everything on this is probably good enough where I could just poly primer. Polyester primer is like a liquid Bondo. You can build it up pretty thick, but I'm gonna still epoxy this. I'll scuff it up, do a little minor body work, and then it'll get primed. Everything will get blocked, and then it gets painted. So we gotta get the ball rolling. Here my wife bought, not the dog on Menards or anything, but my wife got like a hanging swing as a present from Menards. And the kids sat in it, and this bar broke. Their little chintzy welds on each side of this bar broke, and my kid's kind of a big kid. He's 6'2", 6'3", 250 pounds. But he sat down. This would be like the bottom of the seat cushion, and that bar broke. So we had to like unravel it, weld it back, and then I just sprayed some paint on it real quick. But this thing lasted like 3 days, maybe a week. So, what else do we got cooking around here? I guess that'll be it for this video. Me and my kid ran the fender through the English wheel just to kind of smooth out some of the dents. I had my father-in-law remachine the top anvil, and it works a lot better now because it had like a big dent in it before, so you could only roll a little bit, and then you'd have to like loosen it up, slide it over, and roll back. It was a pain, so it's a lot better now. And yeah, I guess that'll be it for this video for right now. I'll come up with an update here in a few days. We'll see as things go. Okay, take care, guys.